All right, everybody, welcome to another episode 3 of the Bench Warriors podcast. I'm sitting here with my other co-host, Matt, and then our friend, Devin. How's it going
Hi.
today, boys?
Good.
Going really good.
All right, so we wanted to bring on Devin as a guest this week because we're going to be talking about most of the podcast will be spent on talking about the Eastern Conference and kind of how we think it will shake out and breaking down each team. And we want to bring on Devin specifically this week because he's a huge Celtics fan. So give him a chance to rant about his Celtics or praise them. We'll see how that goes.
Yep.
So go ahead and give the audience kind of an explanation and, talk about your fandom.
Hi. Well, my name's Devin. I am a Boston fan. All my favorite teams for each sport is in the Boston area. I started watching the NBA around the post Shaq leaving the Lakers era, kind of that 2008, 2010. I spent summer at my grandma's and I really got into the NBA. That was when I first fell in love with the sport. Love playing pickup basketball, thinking about getting back into that. But that's when I really first fell in love with the NBA, and I'm still a casual sports fan compared to you guys for sure, but I know more than the average Joe, I would say, but not anywhere near your level. But I still love the sport the same, and I'm excited to talk about it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Devin and I grew up together, and we definitely have had our knockdown drag-out arguments about Denver versus Boston sports. Devin's gotten the upper hand on most of those just because Boston, you've experienced more success than any other fandom. So
yeah, made our conference finals 5 times out of the last 7. So we haven't been hurting, just haven't gone all the way.
yeah. So we'll. Like I said, we'll go over the Eastern Conference teams and then break each team down. We'll give maybe a minute or two in each team. And then if anybody has more in-depth conversation, each team will definitely do that. So before that, though, I wanted to bring up a news story that kind of came out today. Not really a story, but we'll get to that. So let me pull up my screen. Okay. So I wanted to show you guys this video. If you saw this. So this is the new LED screen or new LED floor for the FIBA games this year. So I'll just play it. It's an all LED. Apparently, it's an all LED glass floor that you can customize it. You can add stats to the players' stats to the floor. It's only a matter of time before this comes to the NBA. I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
So obviously LEDs are underneath it. It's glass on top.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure how Sweat's gonna do, but
yeah,
it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks awesome, and you could have special effects like for the free throw, add player stats underneath. I think it's kind of crazy. I wonder like what's the first team that's gonna do this? Put this.
Yeah, it does look cool. It would be sad to see some of the classic courts out there disappear, like the Celtics one or the Nets gray one I like, but or I think Denver has the city skyline, right? But I mean that same stuff can be applied on the LED court, but I like it. It's a way to grow and make the sport interesting and stay alive.
Yeah, I think that they would probably just play the or impose the classic courts on the bottom, but then you'd be able to add because the NBA is going to put restrictions on it. I'm sure of what teams can and can't put.
I could see players saying it was distracting or something, made him miss a shot.
It definitely does look distracting. That's
for
one
sure.
thing.
And then
I think that it would have to be. I think in the NBA it'd have to be a static floor, and then like you can put stats or like an effect for like a 3 after the shot or something. I feel like if it's moving during the game, that's gonna be really distracting.
Yeah, they're gonna be putting mad advertisements on that too.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Like so especially many advertisements,
in between, like timeouts and everything.
The halftime shows will be legendary, though.
Oh, for sure. For
It's not
sure.
like Rocky needs any more material for his halftime shows.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like 5 years, probably even more than that before we see this in the NBA. I think
I give it 2. I think 2 years.
2. I think they're going
Yeah.
to have a real issue with getting the sweat off of it and traction. I just think they're going to have a lot of issues because once injuries get associated, then you bring in the union. Like the union has to sign off on it. Like there's so many things that people have to sign off on.
Yeah.
It'll
But
be cool though
I
for
wanted
sure.
to bring that up and just talk about that real quick. I thought that was really cool. I saw that today.
That was cool.
All right, so we will get to the standings. All right, so I decided to go over this. That we should go over it by division. So we'll break down the Atlantic last because that has the Celtics and Sixers. I think that's just the overall best division. So we'll save the Atlantic last. But we should start with the Southeast because I do think this is probably the worst division, top to bottom, in the East. So we'll start with the Atlanta Hawks. We'll start with you, Matt.
All right, so the Atlanta Hawks, they're good, but not good enough to be contenders. Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are great players. I think they blend well together, not great, but well. But they alone don't have enough talent to put them over the edge. They need another third, like really good player if they want to be contenders in the East. They gave the Celtics kind of a good run for their money. I believe Celtics were up 3-0, correct, in this last playoffs run, right, Devin?
Yeah.
And then I think the Hawks won 2 games after that, forcing game 6. Yeah. So they put up a good fight against the Celtics. I think the Celtics just let off the gas pedal. But they're a decent team. I just don't think they're great. So yeah, that's my take on the Hawks.
Did you have anything specific you wanted to add, Devin?
Trae Young's a really exciting player, but I don't know if he can be that guy, and I don't know. I kind of feel like he's gonna just stay there to a point where it's like he's sooner or later just says, "Do I want to stay here or not?" Sort of like Dames or like John Wall. I don't know if he can be that guy. He's a really exciting player. His rivalry with the Knicks was really fun. He's very entertaining, but I don't know if he can be that number one guy. He could be a number two. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like he's going to go somewhere else eventually, but we'll see what he does this year.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I mirror your sentiment. I'm not a huge fan of Trae Young. I think he's more of a one of those players that puts up numbers on a bad team, and don't necessarily think he's a player that other stars will want to play with just because of his usage rate is insane, and he's heading towards that James Harden level of usage rate and Luca. I don't even put him on the same level as Luca. Um, yeah, I mirror that sentiment. They're running with Quinn Snyder now as head coach, who I think is one of the best head coaches in the league. I probably have him in the top 5, 6. FanDuel has their over under 40.5 wins. They were 41-41 last year. I probably would put them. I'd probably take the. I think I'd take the over, but just barely on the 40.5.
Yeah, I mean they didn't really get too much better. They didn't really get
Yeah, I think
worse.
just a small bump from Quinn Snyder. It's pretty much the same roster,
Yeah,
but
Quinn Snyder is a
Just
really
to,
good coach.
just to go
yeah,
back on that Luca thing, it was fun to see them kind of at the same level competing with each other. But definitely seems like Luca's taking off and Trey is kind of climbing up slowly, but not as fast as Luca. But it was fun seeing them at the same level for a while.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm just not sure how long they can keep that backcourt together, Dejounte Murray and Trae Young. I just don't think that backcourt fits. So that we'll move on from the Hawks. Oh, Devin, did you want to give your prediction over under that 40.5 wins?
Uh,
41 and
what?
41 last year.
Um, I don't have an educated guess at this second. What did you say it was?
I think they'll just go barely over, just because the Quinn Snyder bump.
Yeah. And Quinn Snyder, this is his first year? Or
He
how
came
many?
in halfway through the year for the Hawks.
Halfway. Oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, former Utah Jazz head coach.
I probably go under just because I think the East got a little bit better, not a whole lot, but a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna go under.
All right, so we'll move on to the Washington Wizards. They finished third in the division last year. They were a 35 and 47. Obviously, they traded away Bradley Beal, and they seem to be getting rid of those vet players. They brought back Kyle Kuzma, bringing in Jordan Poole, bringing in that a youth movement. Their FanDuel has their win total at over under 24.5 wins. I think the Wizards are just moving into that tank mode, maybe. We'll see Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, but what's your guys' thoughts on this?
You can go ahead, Devin.
I think I read right that they picked up Wemby's teammate, and
Yeah,
I
Bilal.
I don't know his name, but I definitely say 24 or under. That was the under, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would
over
say
under
about
24 and a
there. I
half.
think they're just gonna lay low for a while, get another high pick, and see what Wemby's teammate does.
Yeah, pretty similar. The Wizards don't have really anyone at the center position since they traded Kristaps. Their centers are Daniel Gafford and Mike Muscala. So their center position's real weak, and I don't know if they're trying to find someone to replace, find a better replacement. But if they're rolling out with those guys at center, then I don't think they're going to win that many games. I think getting Tyus Jones, which is the point guard that they got from Memphis, he's a really good point guard. I think he's not going to try and just let them lose. He's a winner. He's going to try and win to his best ability. Jordan Poole has something to prove. I think this is he's going to get as many shots up as he wants to. So that's going to let him get into a rhythm whether he can score a lot of points efficiently remains to be seen. We will see. And then I think Kyle Kuzma is a decent player, but it stops there. That's where the decent players are, and then it kind of falls off after that. They have some decent young players, but nothing crazy. So yeah, I think they'll win a little bit more than 24, but not a lot. Not a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna go way under on the 24. I think this is a team that's tanking a year late because obviously we just got done with the Wemby draft. He had Scoot and Brandon Miller, and by all accounts, next year's draft sounds like is really bad. No real top end talent. So they're a team that's, and it just speaks to the shape of the franchise, but they're a team that's tanking a year late. It's gonna be Jordan Poole time the entire season. Like Jordan Poole is gonna get up 25 shots a game, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think they'll want to tank. I don't know if they'll be bad enough to lose all those games. Maybe they will. They probably want to.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the Orlando Magic. They last year they were fourth in the division. They went 34 and 48, and then obviously they're bringing back Paolo Banchero and kind of doing a really good job of building out that core. Not a huge fan of their draft. Black, not a fan. I'm a fan of him as a prospect, but not with that his fit on the team necessarily. But yeah, they're overall they're doing a really good job in building out a core. So this is very interesting year for them. Their over under is set at 36 wins. points, 36.5.
I really like the Magic. They have tons of good young players. Franz Wagner, I've watched probably 10, 15 Magic games over the summer. Franz Wagner is better than Paulo. I'm just calling it now. Like he last year he was better. Will he be better? I don't know. Paulo cannot shoot the three ball at all. He needs to develop a three ball. He shot less than 30% from three last year. Paulo Banchero did not shoot very well. Okay, but if he develops that three, he's going to be really good. He was taking it to the paint all the time, getting lots of fouls. I think he averaged like 10 free throws a game, something along those lines. And his mid-range game is really good. Low post game, really good. He has to develop that three ball. And if he can do that, then I think he'll be really good and be better than France. But Franz Wagner had a better season last year, and it's not even really a debate. So I think with Paolo, if he can develop that three, which I think he will, then they'll improve there. Wendell Carter Jr. is a really good player. He shot 40% from three last year. He was injured, but he's developing really nicely. Terrell Suggs has been, or not Terrell Suggs, Jalen Suggs, my bad. He's not what they thought he was going to be, but he's a really good defensive player. So I think the Magic just have a really good young core. And I think they're going to be fighting for the playoffs. Will they make the playoffs? I'll let you guys know at the end of the episode. But I think they're going to do better than what was the projected wins?
35.5.
I think they're going to be over that for sure.
Oh,
I think that's a good bet.
Sorry.
Okay, I think they'll still go over that. I think they'll have close to 40 wins.
I think it's a little. I mean, you throwing in there the little thing that you think Franz Wagner had a better year than Paolo. That's gonna.
Definitely did, for sure. If you look at the turnovers, I compared numbers. If you look at the turnover ratio, like so many of Paulo Banchero's points came from the free throw line.
Yeah, but that's just the type of players they are. Paolo's not as much of a shooter. And also, Paolo was the number one option on offense and the number one option for defense to focus on. Franz is a role player.
I think he's more than a role player, bro. He's like the shot creator. He can create shots for other people. He's a good ball handler. Like watch some Magic games, bro. Like I
watched
all the games I watched.
Year,
yeah, out of all the games I watched, I feel like France was the best player on that team.
Interesting, yeah. What did you have on that team, Devin?
I am going to say under, but that being said, I have watched 0 Magic games. I don't remember last time I watched a Magic game. Probably maybe last time they played the Celtics. I watched a little bit of it, but I did not recognize almost all the names Matt said. But I think 36 is a little high for that division. I think some other teams in that division are going to be a little more confident than what they were last year. I think the Heat are going to be a little more dominant during the regular season. And since the Magic play in the same division, they play each other more often. And I think that's going to put them under.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to go over on it. I think they'll probably finish second in division. Pretty high on the Magic, high on Banchero, high on Wagner. I really like the core that they're building out. Just a bunch of young guys. And we'll get to the Hornets here as our next team, but I definitely have them picked probably ahead of the Hawks finishing that division. So with that said, we'll move to the Charlotte Hornets, who were last in that division. They went 27-55, bringing back hopefully a healthy LaMelo. Their projected FanDuel has them projected at 29.5 over under wins.
So I think the Hornets are going to be below 29.5. I don't think the Hornets are going to be very good. If I'm the Hornets, I'm trying to tank. They have a decent amount of young talent, so just focus on them, find out who can play and who can't play, and move on. Because if you can get a third player to match up with Miller and LaMelo, then you have a chance at building something. But right now, they're not building anything. And there's really no point in trying to win as many games as possible.
Oh, what about you,
I
Devin?
I agree. I go under. I feel like this franchise is just in a zombie state right now. It's in cryo sleep. It's having owner discussions of pretty sure Michael Jordan's selling. Um, I don't I don't really like anything this team's doing. I haven't for a while. I think last time I was a fan of this team is when Kemba Walker was on it, but um, I think they're just going to lay low and develop and tank and hopefully rebrand because I don't know. I don't really like the Charlotte Hornets um, logo or whatever they got going, but I don't know anything about that. But I'm just saying, I think they're going to go under.
All right. Yeah, I'd probably pick under. I just don't. I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're one of the teams. I don't have them as one of the teams that are gonna try to tank. I just don't think they have anything to get out of it. They're gonna bring back Bridges. Sounds like they have healthy Lamelo, and then you just drafted Brandon Miller. I think eventually you gotta win. You're going to bring in a new owner, so you're gonna have that new owner syndrome where the new owner just wants to make big splashes. We saw that with the Suns over the last year and a half, or probably just now a year. Whenever a new owner comes in, they want to make it big splashes. I think that we'll probably get that. I think the new owner is going to want to win off the top because he's kind of already. You have to think that you have your two stars that you're hoping for in Brandon Miller and Lamelo. I think now you just need to develop those guys and then build around them. So I just don't see them tanking. I just don't think they're a very good team. It will be interesting to see this year and then just this year moving forward the Scoot Henderson versus Brandon Miller debate. They obviously decided to pass on Scoot Henderson, who I had higher than Brandon Miller, and a lot of people did. So that would be an interesting, like RG3 Andrew Lock debate. You know, Kevin Durant, Greg Oden. So we'll see how that helps the Hornets. But moving on to the Hornets, we have our last team of the Southeast Division, the reigning, defending Eastern champion Miami Heat, who are bringing back some of the core. They obviously had Gabe Vincent and Struce leave in the offseason, and this whole talk will probably be outdated in a week or two if they can get Damian Lillard. But they last year they were 44-38, so they kind of underperformed, especially to where they were last year. But FanDuel has their over under at 48.5 wins, so pretty similar, about a 7 win boost for the over under on the Miami Heat.
Yeah, so I think that's a hedge, assuming that Dame's gonna be there. So we're gonna assume that Damian's not gonna play for the Heat. That's what I did. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I did. So uh, I they lost some key free agents. They lost Gabe Vincent, and then they also lost Max Strus. So those are some pretty big losses. Those are two starters for them. However, they did pick up two decent under the radar guys. Josh Richardson, they picked up. He used to play with Miami. They picked him up on a really small contract. He's a really good 3-and-D shooting guard. So I think that's a good pickup for them. No one really talked about that in the offseason. And then the rookie out of UCLA, Jaime Jaquez. He's a really good like small forward, power forward. And I think I don't know if he can take Max Strus's spot in the starting lineup, but I think he's going to be a really good player. He's smart. He's intelligent. He makes good basketball moves. So I think they'll be okay. I think they've taken a little step back, losing those free agents. But if they get Dame, then that obviously changes everything. With the over or under, I take under a little bit because if you're the Heat, you're just trying to make the playoffs. Like that's all that matters. Like regular season in reality doesn't really matter. You make the playoffs, you have a chance. Like so, yeah.
I think that on that, I actually think that the Heat and the Nuggets kind of prove that the regular season does kind of matter. Just because with the Heat, you saw that they had to go, they had so many road matchups through the playoffs, and I think by the time they got to the finals, they were just worn out. and the Nuggets had it seemed like an easy road just because they were the 1 seed. They actually tried during most of the regular season until they locked up the 1 seed. And then just getting that home court advantage for the Nuggets was a big thing. I think the Heat do need to get back to where they were the previous years, not so much last year, but I think they do need to focus more on the regular season just so that they're not playing so many road series and getting worn out, and then have potential injuries to Jimmy Butler and stuff. Because they definitely just looked worn out by the time.
Yeah, they played a lot of games.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I definitely take the over. I think they land at 50 somewhere for a regular season. I think Bam. I'm a huge Bam fan. I think he's going to get better. I think he's going to bring that team up a little more. And I think during the regular season, Jimmy will play along. I think he'll play the role he has to. I just don't think he has the mental discipline to stay focused that you need to stay consistent through the playoffs. But I definitely think he can coast through the playoff or the regular season and be a more dominant team than what they were last year. If Dame joins the team, I'm going to make a hot take and say that they're going to be a worse team with Dame because I don't think that Dame matches well with Jimmy in the locker room. I think Jimmy is more laid back, like, I don't know how to explain this actually, but let's say Jimmy's like more casual, like, yeah, let's go win. But if they lose, then he'll be like, oh, well, we'll try better next time. But I think Dame's more that guy that will like have the discipline to learn from mistakes and be more head focused. And I don't think they're a good mix.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think that's something that may not be talked about. I do think that Dame fits the Heat culture, quote unquote. But Dame is known as one of the best leaders in the NBA, and it is Jimmy Butler is a big time leader. So it would be interesting to see two like alpha players and two big time leaders maybe clashing heads.
Yeah,
That
that's a
is
good way to
interesting,
put
and
it.
two
Yeah.
ball dominant players. I do agree. I probably would think that they would be. I would say that they would be better than where they're currently sitting, just because losing Gabe Vincent and Struce. If they got Dame, I think if they got Dame, they'd be similar to where they were last year. Um, but I don't think Dame's going to be a big change to their projections. I do have them going over because I did predict Dame would go because I just think that's the only spot I see him going. I think it's the only team that can realistically put the pieces together to trade for him that would actually want him. Unless the Sixers are all of a sudden willing to move off Maxi, and then he would obviously have to want to go to Philly. But I do see him going to the Heat. I think he'll end up on there. I have them probably around that 50 win mark, so just over for the Heat. All right, so that was the Southeast Division. From here, we'll move to the Central Division. So we'll start off with the last place team last year, the Detroit Pistons. Coming off a 17-65 record for the Pistons team. Obviously they kind of got screwed by the draft. So I think they were slotted out supposed to be the third pick, and they fell all the way down to 5, kind of just outside the range of all those top picks. They're getting back a healthy Cunningham, and then pairing it with Jen Ivy and the young guys that they're bringing in, and obviously they got Wiseman in the at the deadline. So they do have just a big collection of young players. Be interesting to see where they go from here. They Vegas has them at 26.5 wins for the over under for the Pistons. So about 9 more wins than they had last year.
Yeah, I think the Pistons have a lot of good young talent, like you stated. Will they be able to develop them? We'll see. I think Cade Cunningham and Asur Thompson have similar games. I know Asur is more of a shooter than Cade is, Cade kind of struggles with the three ball a little bit. And he's been hurt a lot. So if Cade can be healthy, I think they'll be a lot better. But that's a relatively big if. I really like Jaden Ivey. I liked him coming out of Purdue last year. He had an okay rookie year. Nothing good, nothing bad, but just okay. So we'll see if they can all three develop, because those are their three best players. I think that's really what they're focused on. They're not going to be competing for the playoffs or anything. They just got to try and develop those young players and try and figure out who's good and who's not. What was the over under? My bad.
The over under was 26.5, so 9 more wins than they had last year.
Yeah. Cade was hurt almost the whole year. I'd say like barely under, but not by a whole lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I say under. I think this is yet another team that needs to lay low and develop, and I don't think it's going to do anything special until we see it. Excited to see what Cade Cunningham has and Jaden Ivey, and it's another purgatory team.
So I'm actually going to go over on this one. So that 26.5, they had 17 wins last year. I think a big factor in that 17 wins was when Cunningham got hurt. That's when I think they were one of the teams that went full tank mode last year. I think they're a healthy Cunningham, hopefully. I believe it was a shin injury that he had. I think a healthy Cunningham and then the influx of more young guys. Maybe we see more development from Wiseman. I'm going to take that over. I'd probably say, I think that's about right where I'd put it, but I think I definitely take the over just because I think that they went into tank mode last year once Cunningham got hurt. So
they did add some shooters in Joe Harris in the offseason as well, so that should help space the floor.
So that will be the Detroit Pistons. The next team we're going to go is the Indiana Pacers, who finished last year second to last in that division. They had a 35-47 record. They're bringing in Bruce Brown as a big addition. They bring in Obi Toppin, so they're obviously the speed for that team. It seems like they're going to be a up and down the court team. So Vegas has them at 37.5 wins for that over under, so just slightly above their previous record. They're bringing back Tyler Halliburton at point guard, in my opinion, one of the best point guards in the league, and bringing back Miles Turner as well, a great defender. So a nice influx of new faces to an already developing core in Halliburton and Mathurin.
Yeah, I think the Pacers, they had a pretty good offseason. They have a good mix of young and experienced players. They pretty much need to make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, it's a failure, in my opinion. Tyrese Halliburton is a good player. I know it's not because of Tyrese Halliburton, but when he left and they got Sabonis, the Kings were the 3 seed in the West, and Halliburton still hasn't made the playoffs. I'm not blaming him at all. That's just an observation. Maybe just saying that Sabonis is better at that time. I think Bruce Brown
have a better roster, yeah, much better roster.
Yeah. I think Bruce Brown, addition of Brown was really good. I believe they added Serge Ibaka as well. I don't know if that's correct or not, but yeah, I think they're good. They're only getting better. The young pieces. We'll see if they trade Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. They've been talking about trading them for a really, really long time, so we'll see if it actually happens. I think Miles Turner is underrated. I think he's one of the best 3-and-D centers in the league. He's, I don't know how he is among all centers, but out of the 3-and-D centers, he's one of the best for sure.
I think Halliburton's going to stay now just because getting rid of Sabonis, and I think they're kind of building around, with the implication that he'll be there at center. I think he's locked in there for sure. I think Buddy Hield is probably gone just because you kind of want to move Mathurin into that starting lineup as soon as possible. What are your thoughts, Stephen?
It's another team I don't know too much about, but it sounds like a team full of young, energetic guys, and I think they can. What was the over under?
37.5. Let me pull that up. Yeah, 37.5.
Yeah, I got
I
the over for sure.
I would say over too. I think they're a young, energetic team that will kind of figure things out later in the season as other teams are starting to rest their starters, getting ready for the playoffs. I think they can steal a bunch of wins late in the season.
Yeah, I definitely see them making a push for the playoffs. I think now's the time. I think Halliburton's definitely in that top 10 uh, point guards in the league for me. I think now's the time. Matherin was a great rookie last year, and you're just continuing to add more pieces around that. So I like the addition of Bruce Brown. I like the addition of Obi Toppin. I think they're going to really they put a lot of pieces that between Halliburton, Brown, and Toppin and Turner, who are pretty good cutters and just great for Halliburton to utilize as that floor general. So I really like the Pacers' potential this year. So we're moving to the Chicago Bulls, who last year were slotted in at 40 and 42. They just got that injury exemption for Lonzo Ball because it sounds like Lonzo Ball is not going to be playing this year again. So another year without Lonzo for that team, which is sad. But they're bringing back um, the same core. They just signed Valanciunas to an extension, and this is a team that I definitely think that if we're talking about the definition of purgatory, the Chicago Bulls are, to me, the definition of a team in purgatory. I wish they would have just blown it up this offseason. I think they should have traded Zach LaVine, done whatever they could to break up these pieces, but instead it seems like that Arturas Karnisovich, the GM who came from the Denver Nuggets, under Tim Conley. He worked under Tim Conley, who was assistant GM uh, while he was here in Denver under Tim Conley. Um, yeah, I just don't like the vision of this team personally. I think they're stuck in that middle ground, which is the worst place that you can be in sports. If it's the NFL or the NBA, definitely the NBA though, where you need to. The only way to get that top talent is to now it seems like just have a bunch of assets so you can trade for them or go draft those guys because these top end players are not leaving in free agency. So you're not really going to entice the player to go to Chicago, one of the top players. But they're heading into the season where Vegas says they're over under at 36.5.
Well, for Chicago Bulls, I'm going to take the under. I think that team's just going to decline and get worse until we see something happen. I think it's a team that has tried to escape the shadow of Michael Jordan era. I think the Derrick Rose was the new dawn that they needed, but we all know how that turned out.
And the Jimmy
And
Butler
then
era.
yeah, Jimmy Butler era was another stain. I feel like the gas tank's empty. I think the best thing they could do right now is tank and hope they get near first and just rally behind a generational player that we see in the future. I think that's their best bet.
Yeah, they're like you said, Josh, definition of purgatory. They have a bunch of old players that are not great. They're good, but not great. I don't see them winning anytime soon. Uh, they made the play-in game last year, just barely. I I would hate to be the Bulls GM. Like I would hate because their young players aren't even that great. Their young players are Kobe White, um, Dasumno, or wait, Dasumu. He's decent. He's a good defensive player, and Patrick Williams. But those aren't guys to build around. Those are role players. So it's just they're not in a good spot. What's their over under 39? You said something like that.
37.
37. They may win more games than that, but if I'm them, I'm trying to trade uh, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan. They probably want to go to winners anyway, so try and trade them somewhere. Um, yeah, I feel bad for the Bulls GM for sure.
All right, so then we're going to move to the second to last team in the Central Division. It's going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers, who went 51-31. They obviously last season traded for Donovan Mitchell, brought in another star to put next to Darius Garland and Evan Mobley, and then they have Jared Allen at center as well. So you have that twin towers down low, and then you have your two guards in your backcourt. They had a really good regular season, and then obviously they flooded out in the postseason. So that first round series against the Knicks, I believe, and they just looked terrible. Um, so yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. We didn't see that big jump that we were expecting from Evan Mobley in his second season. We kind of saw just a minimal jump in most areas, and then it was kind of just more of the same. So I think the Cavaliers are hoping that they get that jump from Evan Mobley, who, coming off his rookie season, there was a lot of hype around him as a young player, how he has Tim Duncan type potential, and just that level of young player for Evan Mobley. And we didn't see that leap. But of course, as we know in sports in general, and especially the NBA, development's not always linear. So we may see more of a jump in this third year. But that's what the Cleveland Cavaliers are hoping. And Vegas has their over end at 49.5. So a game and a half under what they were last year.
So I really like the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had in my opinion, two pretty big upgrades or acquisitions, I guess, and Georges Niang and Max Strus. Both are really good 3-point shooters. And George Niang's not a very good defensive player, but Max Strus can hold his own for sure. So I think with those additions, they got better. Darius Garland, I'm super impressed with. He can do pretty much everything offensively. He's a great passer. He's a great scorer. Defense, he struggles with. He's not a good defensive player for sure. But on offense, he's almost unguardable. So I'm really impressed with him. Obviously, we know what Donovan Mitchell can do. He's a good defensive player and can create his own shot. I think one of the reasons why they played so poorly against the Knicks was because of Donovan Mitchell, because he didn't play that well. Evan Mobley is he's developing, but he's a good defensive player, and hopefully he can develop the offensive game a little bit more. But I think he's looking really good. I think Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, you have two really good players that you can build upon, who are going to constantly improve, and then you just need Donovan Mitchell to just get a little bit better and a little bit more consistent, which I think he will. So I'm really high on the Cavs. I think they'll be above 49.5 for sure.
Also, this was the team that added Max Strus. Sorry to cut you off. This was the team that added Max Strus. And I do like them adding Imani Bates too. He was a player I know when we were watching the draft. I was saying, would have been interesting for the Nuggets to take a flyer on. He looked great in the summer league, so he's a nice, interesting young piece. I don't think he'll be much of a contributor this year, but that is another interesting piece for the future. Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, I'm high on the Cavs too. I think they're just going to get better. I think they're angry at what happened last year. I think they're not going to want to let it happen again. I think they're going to lock down and be more dominant.
All right, so then we're going to move to the 1 seed from last year and the final team in the Central Division, the team that won the division last year, the Milwaukee Bucks, who I think are also going in as the number 2 favorite behind the Celtics to win the East this year, according to Vegas. But the Milwaukee Bucks are bringing back this team. They just re-signed Chris Middleton, bringing back hopefully a healthy Chris Middleton this year, bringing back Giannis, and it's that same core that we saw the last couple of years for the most part. And they're hoping to remedy that 1-8 embarrassment to the Heat last year. Yeah, Giannis was hurt for a couple games, but I still think that they should have won that series, and they're hoping to remedy that, and hoping that Chris Middleton is healthy heading into this year. And let me see. I think I lost this pull up. Yeah, so Vegas has their over under at 53.5 wins. So they have it 5 wins less than the Bucks had last year for the over under.
I could start on the Bucks. I think they're 53. I would say I'm going to go under. Actually, I'd probably put them at 52. And the reason I do that is because um, I think this is the last dance for Giannis on the Bucks. Chris Middleton, you know, he's questionable, injury prone, getting old. Drew Holiday's getting up there. I think Giannis is on shaky ground, and I think this is the last year that he can comfortably, you know, jump off of that shaky ground before it all collapses on him. I put him under though because I think they're going to be a little more smart with the resting. As far as rules are allowed on the resting, I think they're going to be more cautious, just so they can make sure they're healthy and strong in the playoffs. But that's I think this is the show and tell year. I think show me what you got. I think Giannis is gone if they don't get to the finals this year.
Yeah, I think Matt and I on our mock drafts we mentioned it, or at least I did. I do think that the Bucks are on a timer for Giannis, like I think the Mavericks are with Luca. I do think that the Bucks this might be that last run. I think if the Bucks don't win, or if the Bucks definitely if the Bucks underperform in the postseason again, I think that you might be looking at a point where you have an aging roster, and it might be that point where Giannis may be looking to a New York or another market where, like, yeah, I don't know if I can win here much longer.
I my viewpoint is very similar to yours, everyone's. They didn't get any better. They lost Joe Ingles. I believe Wesley Matthews was with them as well, and they lost him. I know those aren't huge players for them, but they're good role players. They're good shooters, and they space the floor, which is what Giannis needs. You have Drew Holiday at 33 years old. You have Chris Middleton at 31. He's injury prone. And then you just re-signed Brooke Lopez because you had to for, I think, $20 million a year. And he's 35. So, like you said, Devin, this is one of the last years that they're going to have before Giannis is like, yo, I'm out. Even if they win, I think he's still going to leave because he's going to be like, listen, guys, we don't have any assets. Sure, they have some decent young players in Beauchamp and Andre Jackson Jr., but not good enough to be the second best player or third best player on a championship team once those guys leave. So, I think they need to swing for the fences this year. And what's the over-under?
51 wins, 51 and a half.
51?
53,
I think that's tough. Yeah, I think that's tough for me. If I was the Bucks, like Devin said, I would, kind of chill so I'd make sure I'm healthy for the regular season or for the postseason. Because Brooke Lopez, Drew Holiday, they're not injury prone, but they're older, so they're going to need to rest more, or they're going to get hurt. And Chris Middleton, we all know that he is injury prone, so it's just tough. It's hard for Giannis to carry that team through the postseason or through the regular season and through the postseason. So. I'd probably go a little bit over just because Giannis hates losing, but I don't think they should be over. I think they should want to be. Well, yeah, that's it.
It's too bad they couldn't bring Middleton just in for like the playoffs or something. I feel like he's a playoff guy. He just absolutely kills us Celtics. I don't really hear too much from him in the regular season. I don't know. But I don't know what you guys think. But Middleton, I like. He's a good playoff player.
Yeah, he's a really good player. I like him a lot.
All right, so that'll wrap up the Central Division. Now we'll move to our last division, the Eastern Conference, the Atlantic Division, who I think top to bottom is probably the best division. But we'll start off with the worst team. I think a team that we probably all will have missed in the playoffs. But we'll have the Toronto Raptors coming in at 41 and 41. They didn't have any big moves, even though we saw rumors of a Pascal Siakam trade. They did lose Fred VanVleet. Sorry. So that's a big loss for them. But none other big moves. This is another team that's kind of in that purgatory where I don't think Masai Ujiri, the GM, or he might be president of Basketball Bridges now, but I don't think Masai is so far has shown an unwillingness to rebuild. So there's another team stuck in that purgatory move. I think he's probably asking too much for players like Pascal Siakam in trades. But we'll see heading into this year. Vegas has them at the over-under at 41.5 on the Toronto Raptors.
So the Raptors, like you said, tough spot. Siakam's not willing to re-sign, so that's why they need to trade him or let him walk for nothing. And I believe I heard some reports that he doesn't want to sign an extension with any team that trades for
so
him.
that's why it's hard to trade for him because he won't sign an extension with anybody. I think he just wants to test free agent waters.
Exactly. So it's you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's not a good spot. They have some good young players. Scotty Barnes, I think, is a really good player. He's good on both sides of the ball. He's been developing really nicely. He's not Kawhi Leonard, but he's like Kawhi-esque as far as like how on both sides of the ball he's as good.
I'm a huge Scotty Barnes fan. I think he has that potential to be a great player, really good player. Maybe on the cusp of star player. Definitely potential wise, he definitely had a disappointing second year. He was another one of those players like Evan Mobley where you didn't see that leap. He came into the year, everybody was expecting him to make that jump, and they're talking about him as the number one piece in a big trade in the offseason, like for a Donovan Mitchell or something. But yeah, another player we didn't see that big leap in the second
year. Yeah, his first and second years were pretty much identical. There was really no difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would try and trade Siakam anyway, just because you're probably not going to make the playoffs anyway, and he's not going to resign with you, and you're just going to win more games if he is playing. So yeah, I would try. Did OG Anunoby sign an extension or no?
I'm just not sure. I think he signed with. I think he left. He's not that he left. I think I forgot where he's at right now.
I think he's still with the Raptors. OG Anunoby. But they were talking about trading him, and he didn't end up getting traded. So I would trade him and Siakam to get whatever you can, and then rebuild from there because they're not really going anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. This is a team that seems like it's right at the beginning stages of a rebuild. I don't think there's any direction to go after losing that many players from last year. I think they're going to go soul searching this year.
Yeah, I think as we're seeing it, there's a lot more teams in that purgatory range than there are actually teams that will probably have tanking. But we'll move on to our next team, the Brooklyn Nets, who obviously last year, if you're a basketball fan, they lost James Harden, they lost Kyrie Irving, and they lost Kevin Durant. This is a team that's kind of in that middle ground, but I think I would put them a step higher than the other teams that are in that purgatory, just because they have Mikal Bridges, who now that we've seen him, so we saw him as a great role player with the Suns, and now we saw him in that elevated role with the Nets, and he's definitely looked great. So it'll be interesting to see his growth as a number one option this year for a whole season. This is another team that's probably ripe to insert a star player, like if Joel Embiid wanted to request a trade or a Giannis, if they were willing to trade within conference or division. This is the team that is ripe for that. I think you insert a star player and they're on that fringe contender list. But Vegas currently has them sitting at 37.5 wins. So that's about 8 wins less. Their over-under is 8 wins less than they had last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair for the Nets as far as over-under, because most of that season they had KD and Kyrie. So, that's theoretically a better team. I think their starting lineup is really good. They have Spencer Dinwiddie at the 1. At the 2, they have Cameron Johnson. At the 3, they have Mikal Bridges. The 4, they have, who did I have earlier? At the 4, they have Finney Smith. He used to play for Dallas. He's a really good defensive player. And then Nick Claxton, which I think Nick Claxton's a really, really good player, really good center. So that starting lineup is pretty good. After that, falls off a little bit. They signed Lonnie Walker. He's okay. They have Royce O'Neal. He's a good vet. So I'm not really expecting anything from the Nets. Will they make the playoffs? Maybe. I think they're going to struggle to make the playoffs. Mikal Bridges really went off for the Nets, like you said. I wouldn't bet that we saw that same success he had at the end of the season for the whole regular season next year. I would bet that we don't see that because teams have now had time to scout Mikal Bridges, see what's in his bag, so now they can defend that better. When he was in Phoenix, he was like the 3rd or 4th option sometimes, so he didn't really get to show all of his stuff. And now that everyone has seen what he has, they can defend it a little bit better. But with that being said, Mikal Bridges is a great player, plays on both sides of the ball. I really like his game.
Yeah, for the Brooklyn Nets, I think what you have here is you have a bunch of young guys. Like for that team, I feel like it's a classroom with a bunch of kids and the teacher's gone and they have a substitute teacher that's, relaxed compared to the normal teacher. I think KD and all the big scary name guys are gone. I think this year the younger guys will be rolling in saying, this is our place. This is our year. We're going to do it how we want. I can see them being a more relaxed and confident and going over this year.
Yeah, I do like that point from you, the substitute teacher analogy. Everything that we've heard from players, DeAndre Jordan, Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, players that came from that Nets system and having to play with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, like they've said it without saying it, they hated being there. There was way too much drama, just
Yeah.
a dark cloud over that franchise. Everybody that we've heard from, especially those 3 players on the Nuggets, we hear those interviews and none of them liked being in that situation. I think now that cloud is lifted, getting rid of KD and Kyrie, and obviously the James Harden situation as well. It is kind of that new, fresh feeling, new team, young players, players that have something to prove, like Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, because they came from the Suns. They were the guys that were traded. The Suns felt like they could be better with Kevin Durant than having both of those guys. So they do have something to prove. And yeah, I really like that analogy for the Nets. So we're going to move to the New York Knicks, who last year were sitting at 47-35, had a pretty good playoff run. This is a team that has all of the assets and from everything we've been hearing, they're saving these assets and kind of just building up that war chest so that they're ready to make the move whenever a big name star. And from what we've heard, they're only going big name hunting. So a Giannis or an Embiid. So this is a team I think that is kind of just in that holding pattern where they're waiting. They got Jalen Brunson, they have Hart, and they just got DiVincenzo, bringing back that college backcourt that they had playing together. But yeah, this is a team that's just sitting there waiting in the wings for one of these big name stars that always happens every year, just waiting for these guys to ask out. Like I said, they were sitting at 47-35 last year, and Vegas has their over end at 43.5.
Wow. I'm definitely taking the over on that. I feel like the Knicks are a pretty good team. Their guards, as far as like their starters and their bench, they're really deep. I feel like that's one of the best starters and bench players that you can get for guards for their backcourt. Re-signing Josh Hart, I think, is huge. Getting Dante DiVincenzo in free agency is huge. RJ Barrett's going to get better. Jalen Brunson, I think, is going to continue to get better. You have Mitchell Robinson. I think he's going to continue to get better. I like the Knicks. I'm not a huge fan of Tom Thibodeau. I don't think he's a great coach, but we'll see what they can do. One weakness that I do see with the Knicks is their depth at center and power forward. They have Hardenstein and Mitchell Robinson at the center position, and that's it. Um, and then for the power forward position, they have Julius Randle and this guy named Nathan Knight. So they don't have a lot of depth at that big man position. So that is a pretty big weakness in my opinion. But we'll see if they can overcome that. I'm still taking the over on that over and under though.
I'll agree with you on the power forward conversation, but I actually really like their centers. I think Mitchell Robinson's a really good defender and offensive rebounder. Like, we just saw him dominate Jared Allen last year in the playoff series. I really like him. He's obviously not a superstar, one of the star centers, but not every team needs one of those. I think he's a very good starter, starting center, and then Hartenstein is, in my opinion, probably the best backup center in the league. So I agree with you. The power forwards, yeah. Julius Randle, God, he needs to have a rebound year because that's looking like one of the worst contracts in the NBA.
Yeah.
Well, for the Knicks, I choose over. I really like what you said, Josh, holding pattern and just waiting to strike. I think they're just a bunch of group of guys that are just naturally skilled and athletic, but I don't think the direction they want to go in is going to be doing anything with these guys. Another word you said was war chest. I actually have Knicks as my prediction that Giannis will go to, and I think a lot of those young guys that we see on those Knicks teams will be Bucks in the future here.
Yeah, I agree
But
with you. I think.
go
ahead.
I choose over just because I think you have a lot of young guys that are skilled and going to get some wins.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only players that probably are safe are Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart right now. I think those are really the only two players you can really think that you would keep around for, potentially getting Giannis or
Not
Embiid.
RJ Barrett.
I think RJ Barrett's going to be the main piece in a trade.
Oh, so they would have to trade him.
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
think any team that's, if you're trading for one of those big name players, I think that RJ Barrett's going to be demand. He's going to be one of the top players that they need
Gotcha.
to have.
I thought you were saying that Josh Hart was one of the untouchable players. Is what I thought you
Oh no,
meant by
I think
that.
those are the only two players that you could safely say are going to be on the roster. Just because I think I wouldn't say Josh Hart is untouchable. I think Jalen Brunson's untouchable at this point.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need him with whatever star you bring in. And then I think, I'm not saying Josh Hart's untouchable, but I think it's at the point where they like him so much in that backcourt, Jalen Brunson. They're like best friends. They played in college together. And I think, so I don't think they want to trade him. And I also don't think he'd be like an important piece that they would have to give up on a 2-year deal. So we're moving on to now the final two teams. We're going to have the Philadelphia 76ers, a team that's going through quite some drama right now with the James Harden trade rumors, and then Joel Embiid. Will he, won't he demand a trade? I don't know. It's a different story. Joel Embiid, team that went 54-28, again underperformed in the postseason. Joel Embiid is the only MVP winner who has never been past the second round in NBA history. So that is a player who the media kept trying to push, and I think now the media and the fans are seeing that Joel Embiid may not be the player that everybody thought he would be, maybe not the top option, but he still has a chance to prove it right now, being as that number one star on the 76ers. But this is a team that continuously underperforms when it comes to the postseason. They were sitting at 54-28, and then actually let me pull up their over under. I think I lost them. Oh, here they are. So their over under is 49.5 for the 76ers team. I think it's kind of like a hedge of trading Harden or not trading Harden. It sounds like Daryl Morey won't trade Harden unless it's for a star player. He's kind of has that reputation. He was able to turn Ben Simmons into James Harden. So we'll see. I think it's at the point where I think it's actually in the CBA that now that he's on this last deal, I'll have to go back and look, but the rules of the CBA. But he has to show up. He can't legally he can't not show up. So we might see him whip out that fat suit again that he had at the Rockets. It may become real toxic real quick in Philly.
Yeah, so what you're saying, Josh, if he does not show up and does not play, he cannot play anywhere else until he plays 1 year with the 76ers.
Yeah.
So that's what you're talking about with the CBA. Yeah, I think the 76ers are going to be worse next year, regardless if they trade Harden or not. The good news is Maxey is a great young player, but the 76ers, it's just Embiid and Harden and Maxey, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, the good news is that Harden's on a 1 year deal, so if he plays really poorly, he's not going to get a good contract. But I don't know if he's going to get a good contract anyway. One of the reasons he opted into that contract was because he knew that there wasn't a market out there for him for the money that he could get. So I don't know. The 76ers are a huge toss up. I have no idea what's going to happen with them. Embiid's a great player. You know, he won MVP last year, obviously. Whether he deserved it or not is another question. But so, you know, as far as the over or under, it's a huge. I would not put money on the 76ers one way or the other.
I think this is one of those teams, like you said in the beginning, that's going to be outdated soon. I think it all hinges on Harden. I don't see I don't see the Sixer situation coming out uh, good for Harden. I think, like Matt said, it's going to get ugly. I think Embiid is losing interest and staying. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be like the Bucks. I think maybe if they can convince Harden to stay, maybe it can be like a last dance and see what they have. And if they don't do anything, then I can kind of see Harden going back to Houston and just taking what he can get and working on his legacy there. But Sixers very uncertain, shaky ground right now. It all hinges on Harden. Don't know what they're going to do. I would say. What was the over under?
That was 50 wins. Or
I say
49 and a
under.
half, I believe.
Under for sure. I think their future's uncertain. It would be nice to see them convince Harden to give it his all and stay and make one last run. But I don't think Harden's that kind of guy. And I think Embiid is on a timer. And I think I'm very uncertain for the Sixers. But I would say under.
All right, so we are moving to the final team of our Eastern Conference preview, Devin's own Boston Celtics, who were they're sitting at 57, or they sat at 57 and 25 last year, were the number 2 seed in the East. Their Vegas over under is 54 and a half wins. And kind of shockingly, the Vegas has them as the favorites to win the championship. I definitely think, in my opinion, they're the favorites coming out of the East, but I just don't see any justification for having them as the favorites over the Denver Nuggets. But I'm going to give the floor to Devin, as this is his team, and he can go ahead and try and defend them as the NBA favorites if he thinks they are.
Sure. Yeah, the Celtics. Depending on Jaylen Brown, this conversation may be outdated soon, but I think Jaylen Brown stays. I'm not too sure about how the money works, but not too sure why. Maybe Josh can answer this for me right now in real time, but not sure why a super max is on the table for Jaylen Brown when just a normal max would be more money than any other team could give him. Could you answer that for me?
Yeah, so players eligible for a supermax, he had to make an All NBA team, and he was second team All NBA, so that's why he's eligible for the supermax
Okay,
contract.
so if you're eligible, then you have to give that player the supermax.
You don't have to,
Oh,
but
okay.
the
So then
player's
why
just
wouldn't
eligible for that.
so is it possible the Celtics could just give him a normal max instead of the supermax?
Yeah, they could, but it would be up to Jalen Brown if he wants to take it or not. I mean,
Right. I
Jalen Brown
think
would be
that
a free agent if they don't take it, and then like you'd be upsetting a player and his agent. So like, you'd be potentially hurting your chances of any other of that agent's clients coming to Boston.
right. I now that I know how it works, I think my prediction is he will just take the max, not the super max. I think I think the Celtics will say um I think the Celtics will kind of bluff him and say, you can walk if you don't want this max. I think the max would be higher than, like I said, any other team would offer him. So I think that's how they're going to work it out. But I think Jalen Brown's going to stay. I am not surprised that the Celtics are the favorite. The addition of another superstar with the Chris Straps, I think the last two times Jason and Jalen had a superstar come and help them, they weren't anywhere near their peak. They were still young and developing. You had Kyrie Irving, too young. Kemba Walker, too young. I think this is perfect timing. I think they just re-up their armory. I don't think I'm on the other side as most Celtics fans. I'm not too devastated on the loss of Marcus Smart. A lot of people remember. I love Marcus Smart, but and it sounds like I'm going to drag his name through the mud right here, but just know that I love him very dearly. I've watched him for so many years, and um, but a lot of people say he's the fire and soul of this team, and he will leap for balls and pump the locker room up. I actually haven't seen much of that lately, and I've seen less and less of it. In the last few years. I think he's just doesn't have the fight and soul in him that he did maybe 3 years ago. So I don't think it's a huge, devastating loss. A lot of people thought he was the third best player on that team last year. I disagree. I think Brogdon was, and I believe we still have Brogdon. Right. the The first trade had him going away, and that had me more sad than what actually happened. So I'm glad how things turned out, and Celtics. I think uh, looking like a good year for them. I would. What's the over under?
54 and a half.
I go over. I think they're going to improve. I think they're going to dominate.
So what you said about Jalen Brown, I agree. I would not give him the supermax. I don't think he deserves it. I think he's a good player. I think if you try and give him the max, then he'll just test free agency and potentially go somewhere else. So I would find that middle ground between the supermax and the max. That way, and then if he doesn't take that, then it's like, you know what, bro? Like, you're not worth the supermax.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Um,
Right.
so that's what I would do if I was the Celtics GM. So I think they do retain him. If he's smart, he will sign that because that's more money than he can get anywhere else still, even if it's not the most money he can get possible. I am skeptical about the KP trade, Kristaps trade. I think on paper it makes them better, but he's so injury prone. Kristaps Porzingis. This last year I think he played every single game. If not, he played close, which has never happened before. I think the years previous, he was averaging like 50 games per year. And this last year, he just played almost all of them. So can't really rely on that. So I'm skeptical. We saw everyone, when they signed Danilo Gallinari, everyone was like, oh, this makes them better. Danilo Gallinari was out the entire year, and now he's on the Wizards. Malcolm Brogdon, you guys signed him, and everyone's like, oh, this makes the Celtics way better. And then he got hurt and didn't play really well in the Eastern Conference Finals. And you guys traded away Marcus Smart and then didn't re-sign Grant Williams. Grant Williams isn't a great player, but those were your dogs. Like, those were the guys that are willing to fight for the squad. I don't know who's willing to fight for the squad on the Celtics. Like, is it going to be Jason Tatum? Definitely not. Jaylen Brown, I've maybe have heard him say 20 words in his entire career. Like, I don't even know what his voice sounds like. Like, he could sound like Elmo, and I'd be like, I didn't know that was his voice.
I felt that way about Tim Duncan when I finally heard his voice.
Exactly. So, every team needs someone that's willing to punch someone else in the mouth for you. Like, if Jason Tatum gets checked and they like throw him on the ground, you need someone that's going to throw a punch or push someone or something. You need an aggressive person. If you're a championship team, you're competing. That's Draymond Green for the Warriors. Like, no one's messing with Draymond Green. Grant Williams was that guy. Marcus Smart was that guy. And so you get rid of those guys, I think that hurts. So does it make them better on paper? Celtics are 100% better on paper. But does it make them better in the playoffs where they seem to struggle? I don't think it does.
Yeah, I think the injury prone thing is the label. I mean, that's why you got Brogdon. The Celtics got Brogdon, and he was available pretty much because he was so injury prone. So that's not really going to change. Kristaps Porzingis, I do think it's very generous of you to say he was a superstar. I think that's just a wee bit of a stretch.
All-star, I meant. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, I'd probably put him just on that borderline of a star player if he stays healthy.
Same for Kemba Walker. I'd say he's an all-star, not a superstar.
Yeah. I do think the Celtics are the favorites out of the East. We're gonna give our standings here in a minute. I do think they should be the number 2 favorites to win the title. I don't see any reason why they should be above the Nuggets. I think it's just more of the same. They're getting KCP, but they lost Marcus Smart, who I do think I'm in that camp. That I think losing Marcus Smart is going to be a big blow, especially to just the psyche of the team. Especially if you get punched in the mouth again in the postseason. I think you're going to need Tatum to take the leap. Yeah, so it sounds like I'm down on the Celtics, but I actually think they're the best team in the East, and I think they should be the favorites and the number 2 favorites. The favorites in the East, the number 2 favorites to win a championship, but I don't think that they're better than Denver Nuggets.
I am a Joe Mazzulla believer. People ragged on him way too hard. That was his first year. He got very far. He's promising. People are too mean. Give him another chance. I think he's going to do great.
Maybe he should stop watching The Town so much.
Watch a little more game film. Don't cater to people. Just do your job.
I think he'll do better this year. He didn't have that much time to prep last year, so he'll do better this year for sure.
He might hit a wall. He might hit I don't know if coaches commonly hit walls like new players do, but I can see that happening. But I think it helps having Brad, be the man above all to kind of help from a distance.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they gave him some veteran coach help. I forgot who they got.
Yeah, they brought in vets along the bench. Yeah,
that's what they need.
I do think the coaching will be a little bit better. I can't say definitively or not if he's, an actual NBA coach. But I do think that we'll see improvement in that point. But I think just talking because we all agree they're the favorites in the East, probably. They're the best team in the East. I do think they're one of the deepest teams in the league. But if we're just comparing them to the Nuggets because they're currently sitting as favorites, I think they are deeper than the Nuggets. But I think if you just go top player for top player, I think Jamal Murray is better than Jaylen Brown. I think Jokic is better than Tatum. I'd probably put Porzingis and MPJ around the same level. And I just don't think the Celtics have anybody at Aaron Gordon's level right now in the starting lineup.
A lot depends on Robert Williams, too, if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, because I think Robert Williams can be slotted in that Aaron Gordon level player. So that would help. But I think it's just a little too much projection for Vegas putting the Celtics as the favorite. But I can't be too upset because I do have them as the number 2 favorite. So That it was our Eastern Conference breakdown. So now, if everybody wants to kind of go over their top 8 teams, and if you have the playing game set up, we'll start with you, Devin, if you're prepared to give your top 8, kind of how you think that playoff bracket will look come the end of the season.
Sure, my top 8. Let's see. Well, we're gonna have Celtics as number 1. I think I think they're going to be a consistent, dominant team with a focus of getting to the finals, and I think they'll end up number 1. Bucks will be number 2. I think this is Giannis's last year. I think things are going to be make it or break it for them, so I think they're going to be number 2. Third, I have Heat. I think they're going to be, depending on what happens, who knows, but I think the Heat kind of waking up after making the finals. I think they're waking up and saying, "Oh, we can be that team." I think they're going to be more focused and dominant in the regular season. So number 3, 4, I have the Cavs. I think they're going to sneak up there. 5, Sixers. Depends on what happens, but I think they fall apart. I think they're not going to do anywhere near as good as last year. 6, I have Knicks. 7, I have Nets. And 8, I have the Hawks. Because I feel like that's Trae Young's thing. I feel like he messes around during the regular season, and then when it gets playoff times, if he's anywhere near that 8th position, he'll bust his butt to get there, but he ain't going to do anything, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. And then who do you have coming out of the East? Win it.
To win it, Celtics. To win the Eastern Conference, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Celtics. I think it'll go down to Celtics and Heat.
Okay. And then since you won't be on next week when we give our Western Conference preview, who do you have coming out of the West? And then who do you think will ultimately win the championship?
Well, I think Nuggets are the safe choice, but I think Suns are a wild card. I feel like Suns. I don't know everything they did, but I think a lot of their off-season additions just added more muscle. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Suns are a wild card. I feel like if you light the fuse, a firecracker could go off or a nuclear weapon. But I think Nuggets are gonna win it. I think Nuggets will power through. Yeah, I don't think Warriors and Lakers are gonna do anything special. Clippers and Mavs would follow them.
So you have Nuggets for the championship?
Nuggets for the championship. I'm a little hesitant on Suns, but Nuggets. Yep. Sorry.
Beating the Celtics in the final.
Yes, I do. I think it hinges on Robert Williams. If Robert Williams is healthy, if everyone's healthy, but I think it hinges on Robert Williams on what he does, if he improves, stays healthy. But yeah, Nuggets if Robert Williams is unhealthy. Celtics if Robert Williams is healthy and improving.
And then just so the audience knows, Devin and I have had a bet for over a decade about who'd win the next championship, the Celtics or the Nuggets. We were betting a tattoo. I was hoping the tattoo would be finished for Devin by the podcast. It obviously wasn't, but we'll have you on against later in the year so you could show it off to everybody. Yes. But are you wanting to do another bet now that you lost that one?
My first thought was to do it as soon as possible, but I think still thinking on some things on what it wants or what I want it to be, but I will reveal it when the Nuggets raise their banner because I'm extra like that. But as far as another bet, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I don't think it'll be a tattoo, maybe a hat or something. But because I think Celtics have a lot to prove before they're get anywhere near the Nuggets are. I think Nuggets are really sturdy powerhouse that's not going anywhere. And Celtics, they still have to prove if they can get there. You know, they weren't even in the finals last year. So
Have you revealed where the tattoo was or is going to be?
Since I've talked to Matt, that's well, I've shown Matt what I wanted, but that's not what I want anymore. I have something in mind. Um, I have something in mind, and it's all I'll say is it's a tattoo that you've seen on someone from the Denver Nugget Association. I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out from there, but you've seen this tattoo before. I think that's the one I'm going to go with.
Yeah. Lower back tattoo. Gotcha.
Yes.
Go ahead and give you your bracket, Matt.
So I just went through all the teams. These are my rankings. And if you guys disagree, feel free to call me out and we can discuss it. Number 1, I have the Celtics. This is the order of the seeding, what I think will happen. I have the Celtics number 1, Bucks number 2, Cavs number 3. 4, I got the Knicks. 5, I have the 76ers. 6, I have the Hawks. 7, I have the Heat. This is without Damian Lillard. 8, I have the Pacers. 9, I have the Magic. And 10, I have the Nets. And then, so that's all for the playoffs and the play-in. And then to miss the playoffs, I have the Bulls at 11, Pistons at 12, Wizards at 13, 14, Raptors, and 15, the Hornets.
All right, and then who do you have coming out of the East?
So this is going to be a hot take, but I have the Cavs. I think the Cavs are going to take that next step. I think they match up pretty well against the Celtics. They have good paint defenders in Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, and they added a lot of depth. So I think the Cavs are going to take it. I think the Cavs are going to punch the Celtics in the mouth, and the Celtics aren't going to know what to do with it, or the Celtics just aren't healthy. So I have the Cavs coming out of the East.
Okay, yeah, that is a hot take. All right, so then I will give my bracket. I have the Celtics as the 1 seed. Then I have the Bucks coming in at 2. I actually have the Knicks at the 3 seed, and then the 76ers at 4. I just think the turnover for the Sixers, and we may see that Harden trade, will have them fall to 4. Then I actually have the Heat coming in at 5. And then the Knicks at 6. Oh no, sorry. I have the Cavaliers at 6. Then the Heat at 7. And then I actually have the Orlando Magic coming in at 8, winning that play-in. And then I know it's going to be chalk, but I just think the way the rest of the East is shaping out, I don't think the East is a very good conference. I do think that the Celtics have no excuses to not get to the finals this year. I think if they miss the finals, there's going to be a lot of turnover. With the coaching staff and with the roster, I just think this is the time that there's no more excuses. I think the Celtics have to make the finals this year. So I have the Celtics coming out of the East.
Yeah, I mean, if they sign Jaylen Brown, like, they can't really trade him, right? If they re-sign him?
Yeah, I do think it's a little suspicious that he's not traded yet, or not signed yet. He went on vacation, so they were supposedly negotiating. Then he went on vacation without a contract. It's very weird that it's taking this long. I do think that you may have to keep an eye on Jason Tatum saying that he's trying to convince Damian Lillard to agree to come to the Celtics. I think in that case that you will probably see Jaylen Brown sent to a third team in that trade to send more assets to the Trailblazers. I think that may be something to keep an eye on. That may be why, because once you sign him, you have to wait till mid-season, or I think it's past the trade deadline that he'd be available to be traded, Jaylen Brown. So I think they may be waiting, testing some waters about the Damian Lillard move. I think that may be why it's taking so long. Yeah. But that was the episode 3 of the Bench Warriors podcast. I want to thank Devin for coming in and being a guest on this episode and talking about his Celtics team. We do hope to have you on later in the year.
Anytime.
I want to thank the audience for listening to us and giving us those views. Please hit the like the like button, subscribe to us. That'll help us a lot. Do appreciate just taking the time out of your day to watch us, and comment, and we'll reply to it. And have a nice discussion in the comments as well. Anything that you boys have anything to say before we close it out?
Thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate you. Keep tapping in.
Thanks for having me, guys. This has been an awesome show. It's fun watching you, and I'm looking forward to the future.
All right, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.